Thanks for staying with us. Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and we appreciate your company here. Charles Owino, formerly the spokesperson of the National Police Service and serves at the National Communications Centre, is with us in the studio. And we have former commissioner from the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, John Waiganjo, the executive director of the Independent Medical and Legal Unit, Grace Wangeshi, as well as the president of the Law Society of Kenya, Emeritus Eric Deuri, is with us in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. And Grace, coming to you, this ideally again brings about the aspect of the status of human rights in the country and extrajudicial killings, which seem to be a struggle for regime after regime to address this substantively. Given that you have in this space, what are the challenges in your view as to the inability by administrations to end the suffering of Kenyans?
So let me start by just reminding us of the numbers we're dealing with. Last year, we reported 67 deaths of Kenyans, extrajudicial killings. Unknown to us, we haven't shared our report yet, but as of today, 2025, we are reporting already 17 deaths, and 5 of those are in police custody. 5 of those are already people who've died in the hands of police. So two very quick things. One, and we've spoken to the issue of individual and command responsibility. The level of impunity in this country is just too high. No one takes responsibility. No one is held accountable. And the call for the DIG, by the way, to step down is a country call. Because if you're a leader and you're accused, you're adversely mentioned in a situation, the practical thing is for you to step down so that then investigations can continue, in a transparent manner and without influence, without intimidation. Already, we know that there have been a lot of inconsistencies, as we've spoken, but there's also been a lot of attempts to cover up. So if there were attempts yesterday and the day before to cover up what could have transpired, how will it continue when someone who's been adversely mentioned is still in office and holding a high position? Now, let's ask ourselves who are interdicted yesterday. These are what I would call small fish, allow me to use that word. But we haven't seen any real leader taking responsibility and stepping down and or being interdicted. So we need to say that first and foremost, there has to be accountability.
But Grace, you had the OCS of the station who was interdicted, Mr. Talam, and the others. He is the head of, he's the officer in charge of the station, certainly not the small fish, is he?
Fair enough. But why isn't the DIG, who is a person who was a complainant to begin with, who is in the police force, who is in charge of a lot of, the big people, why wasn't he interdicted? So I think the fact remains that the country is demanding that the DIG steps down. The country is demanding that there's, the process of investigations is fast-tracked and that there's no cover-up whatsoever. Now, let's look at the use of, police brutality and weaponizing the police service. It is meant to be a service. But now what we are seeing is police using every available power. And when I say police, we know it's a few rogue police officers. It's not the general police service. We've seen very good police, officers, people with, good command of their positions. But we've also seen rogue officers who are going and getting away with it. As you correctly said, 2007, 2008. Where are we at? So all these cases, the issue of convictions has been very low, very poor. So that tells people that you can always get away with it and you continue abusing your power. Now, let's also look at why the arbitrary arrests, because that's a serious issue. We've seen a rise in arbitrary arrests, that any small thing one does and somebody in a position of power feels that it is against their position, their image, then they use the police service to get this person out of the way. That shouldn't be. So we are weaponizing the police service to be a tool that is used to score and to ensure that you protect the political elite, and this needs to stop. Okay. So in terms of the human rights position and status in the country, it's a shame that we have gone back to very dark days. It's appalling that we've had not only the extrajudicial killings, but enforced disappearances, including a situation where we say all the missing people have been found, yet we know they haven't been found. Okay. So it's important that we note that we are concerned about the regression in human rights in the country.
And Charles, police can arrest on mere suspicion. But I
will come to that.
Yes.
I'll come to that. But
and then you explain the threshold.
Before I come to that, I am not DIG Lagat's advocate. DIG Lagat has gone through a lot of attacks the last 2 months. He has been attacked. We have had politicians saying their person was removed to put another person. And it's in public domain. And if it was a new thing, that this is the first incident and therefore something has happened, then it would be different. But Lagat has been under attack. It's like something coordinated for a purpose, that he should not be in that office. What I can say is Lagat has a right as an individual to complain when he thinks he's getting maligned and whatever it is. I've heard presidents say there is no offense, but with my little knowledge, I know we have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act of 2018. Which you will guide us.
Which even the DPP yesterday.
Excuse me, you will guide us.
Used to approve a charge.
I'm saying
for Kelvin.
Excuse me, you will guide us. On that.
Yes.
And also, we don't want also DPP to act politically, because if he's disapproving this and he has been approving others, then it is a challenge.
Which other ones has he approved?
No, there are so many people who have been charged for false publication. I don't think this is the first incidence. And I know because of, I don't have actual statistics, but I know the DCI has charged a number of people under the Misuse of Computers and Cybercrime Act. And a number of offenses, even if you go at international level, you find a number of offenses like false publication, what we call malware, what we call identity theft, and a number of issues. And a lot on cybercrime need to be prosecuted. What I'm trying to say is that call for Lagat to step down at this stage, according to me, is too early. Because the person who had responsibility, who has actual responsibility of custody, is the OCS and his officers. If through investigations we find it was Lagat direct, because Lagat complained to the DCI. The DCI has a responsibility, because he's not junior, to take up the matter if he thinks there's an offense or not. It is not for Lagat to make a decision for the person to be arrested.
Okay.
So the person, just a minute, the person to be arrested...
Yes, Charles, explain this then. What then warrants, in your view, what's the threshold of reputational damage that warrants the arrest of a Kenyan who has freely expressed himself on social media and ended up dead in a police custody?
No, it's a bad thing, and I've explained that.
Yes.
It ought not even to happen. Are you getting me? It ought not even to happen. Just like he said, if offense is not cognizable, then you may not arrest without a warrant. But this is a discussion. Is this offense cognizable or non-cognizable? And that's what I was telling the President a few minutes ago. Let us be consistent in what we are doing. If we agree that people are not going to be arrested for Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Acts 2018, or people can be bullied in social media and it is acceptable, then let's agree as a country. It cannot be selective. What I'm saying is that this thing is escalated because this guy died in police custody, and it is wrong. It's giving the police a wrong image. And I've said that we need to inculcate trust. I'm not saying that it is right. The only thing I'm saying is that everyone seems to be targeting Lagat. If today Lagat steps down, the issue dies, because interest seems to be Lagat.
Why in your view is it Lagat?
No, because you see, he was a complainant. in this matter, isn't it?
Okay.
He was a complainant in this matter. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If today I complain, just a minute, if today I complain that somebody has stolen my cows, I'm just a civilian, and then the anti-stock theft officers go and arrest this person and torture him and kill him, am I responsible for what they have done? So what we are saying is we have no reason, I cannot protect him. But I'm saying is it's too early. Let the owners of this, Kwasa the OCS and his officers, let them tell us what happened in custody.
Okay.
If we get evidence today that DIG Lagat was involved, then leave about interdiction. He goes to court. Not just interdicted. He goes to court straight away.
Okay.
Yeah. So but let us be very careful.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, Ayub,
please.
I want us to be very broad in this matter. I can tell you, you can be shocked if you find an external interference in this matter. You can be shocked to find somebody involved, even in bribing a police officer and doing this for another purpose. So we are in a very high... Just a minute.
Chelsea,
just a minute.
Charles,
I don't want to
protect... Why I pose this to you is that you're not the normal citizen. I mean, you are a trained policeman who trained Lagat himself.
Yes. Yeah. And that is why I am saying, let us not.
So the point is then, why the ambiguity around parties that you are mentioning and you are not naming names?
Exactly.
Which ones?
And Lagat,
I mean, who are the people who are targeting the DIG, in your view?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
We are all Kenyans. We have seen politicians going on media and saying, we had a director of CID, it was taken. We had a DIG, it was taken. We had, I don't know what it was.
And what is the relation? What is the relation between these political statements
and the crime?
That is why I am saying. Listen to me, Ayub. We are Kenyans. Listen to me. I am not exonerating anybody from this.
Yes.
Investigations ought to be open, so that we get the actual culprit. Sometimes we can divert attentions, and we move from the real cause of a problem. No, so what I'm saying is simple.
Yes, Charles,
this thing is open. Yes. No, what I'm saying, it's open.
Yeah.
But let us not target an individual who complained.
Point made.
That is my take.
Allow me to go to the Commissioner. I'll come to you.
Let me take it that way.
Yes, and your point is taken. Bwana Commissioner, when I interviewed you last year here at the height of the demonstrations when Kenyans went to the streets against the punitive tax proposals contained in the now dead finance bill, you said non-cooperation from the police and other agencies is why investigative processes are slowed down from IPOA's perspective. How different will this be? How different will the team that has succeeded you as the past commission be on this matter and come up with conclusive report for the public?
I personally think the code of conduct by the officers is consistent in investigations. So I do not expect that there will be more cooperation now than there wasn't last year. But more importantly is not politicize issues like this, because a life has been lost. Yes, and even if IPOA will carry out investigations, I don't think we should split hairs talking about what politicians are talking about in this instance. I think if we bring politicians into an issue of Albert's death, then we will be missing the point. In fact, what we should be emphasizing on is, first of all, command responsibility, which is now very clear in our laws. You remember, now we have the Baby Pendo case now pending. That is clearly, we will create jurisprudence allowed the command responsibility. But also, personal and individual responsibility of the officers, particularly those who are manning the central police station. And I think it's important to inform our officers, the members of the National Police Service, that illegal orders or complying with illegal orders is no defense. Because when it gets down to you, then you will suffer alone, or you will be charged alone. And we remember the matter of the late advocate, where a police officer, is serving 20 years in jail just for not recording in the OB. You're
talking about Sylvia Wanjiku.
Yeah, Sylvia Wanjiku.
I agree.
And so that the officers may know that when you receive a command from your commander, it does not become a defense that you have carried out that. And I heard what the president said, that the officers are disclosing that they are getting instructions and they have to hold Kenyans in custody for weekends on end. So it's important that the police gets to know that. But also more importantly is the funding of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, including increasing their investigators and their budgets. Because as long as that is not done, then they will go around in circles. So we know they have very few investigators. The investigators have no powers of arrest. They are not armed. Their budgets are low. They are in 8 regions in the country. So whether we want it or not, convictions will remain low. And we cannot entirely blame IPOA for low convictions, because it's a chain. There are many matters pending in court. There are many more pending in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, not even taken to court yet. So interference can be on any level. It can be at the political level. It can be at the ODPP. It can also be in the National Police Service. So what we should do, in my view, is that when a matter such as this comes to forth, it should be handled with a lot of care. Because a life has been lost, and we cannot afford now to start talking politics back and forth, so that we get justice to this family and many other families that have lost their life.
And yesterday there was the guarantee that was given by the current chair, Ahmed. And according to the Oversight Authority, it received 30,493 complaints received and processed. Of these, investigations that have been completed is 5,655 and only 33 convictions made. 136 cases before courts, 878 cases referred to the ODPP. Police operations monitored is more than 660. Inspection of police premises, 4,804. Certainly, this is not a good record, is it?
Absolutely, but I'll tell you this. Also, some of the officers who are arrested and investigated, or the complaints received by IPOA, are not prosecutable. So sometimes, and that's why you see a high number of complaints to IPOA, but IPOA is not mandated to handle all the complaints. Some of those complaints will necessarily go to the Internal Affairs Unit because they are disciplinary in nature. Others will go to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and others will go to Commission on Administrative Justice. So the chunk that is left with IPOA is now what is comprised of the investigated cases, which obviously now also goes to the ODPP. The ODPP doesn't take all of them to court, because he has also to look at the evidence that is available, and then only takes to court what he thinks or what he passes as prosecutable cases. And then the courts themselves will convict based on evidence. So you will see less and less convictions based on the manner of investigations, who has been brought to court, and then, of course, the courts convict or acquit. So it means, and that's why I was saying, there are many officers within the service who do their work very diligently and professionally. But there are others who are wrong, and those who are wrong are very few. And it tells you to look at the convictions that the law officers are actually very few. And that's why we are having a low number of those who are convicted. So if we condemn them en masse, we may lose the point that actually only a few officers are law. And that's why I also said any junior officer who takes instructions from a commander, instructions that are illegal, then that stands as no defense to that officer.
Yes, Bonares, you had a point. I'll come to you, Gracie, earlier on.
No, I just wanted to say 2 things. That the crime that happened at Central Police Station is not one that can be justified, is not one that can be explained, and trying to bring in politics or any other thing is, really an attempt at trivializing a very, very important issue. One of the things that we have to accept is that for perhaps the last 1 year, there's been an increase of abuse of police powers for political purposes.
Exactly.
So that we have a force, a police service that has been weaponized to advance political interests. So that's the first thing. And that is the first sad thing in this situation. And then the second is that as a result of that impunity and misuse of police powers, and that's why I was having a problem with the former spokesperson, when there's no act that is being abused like the Cybercrime Act.
Exactly.
Because the purpose for which Cybercrime Act has been enacted is actually to deal with cybercrime as known and defined in law, which are issues to do with hacking, which are issues to do with the misuse of systems. So when somebody is using his phone on Twitter and makes a statement that could be insulting or derogatory, that is not a criminal offense. It is not something that we approve of, but it is not a criminal offense. It is civil in nature. You deal with it in the manner in which it's supposed to be dealt with. But also, what has happened to just courtesy and good manners? If this gentleman had committed a crime in law, what was so difficult with just going to tell him, show up at a police station, we have conducted our investigations, we have found that you have done this, come and we will take you to court on this day. So the manner in which he was arrested tells you of the overzealousness. They are getting to that point where they believe that they are above the law. Why? Because they are being used to advance certain political interests, and because of advancing those political interests, there is no accountability. Now we come to, for example, the institution that is supposed to check them. If you want to be sure that there is no political goodwill, yeah, IPOA is understaffed, under-resourced, and so they are trying to do their job. There are so many cases when I've had discussions with them, so many cases where they have investigated. And one of the things that we need to tell you, because I was involved in this case working with IJM, yes, on the Ruaraka OCS who was eventually convicted for killing someone in Nahashon Mutua. The level of interference that is in those kind of cases, because even some of those witnesses had to be put in police protection, had to be put in witness protection, because there was an attempt to actually kill those witnesses. Those witnesses. And that is the thing that we are saying, that you cannot have the DIG, and let me tell you one thing, and I wanted to respond to what Charles Owino had said here, that if I report a crime and police officers torture that person and kill that person, is different than when the complainant is the DIG of police.
Exactly.
It is different. This is their direct boss. He is their direct boss. And so the overzealousness in which that manner is whatever, is directly attributable to the fact that he is their direct boss. And he is their commander.
Okay. Exactly.
So he knows, he ought to know that as a DIG, on these petty small things, I have to learn to overlook some of these things, because he is in office, he's in public office. And when you're in public office, there is a higher level of scrutiny that is leveled on you. And sometimes some comments would be made that are actually not factual, that are actually not true, but that is the nature of the office.
Okay.
So he was personally aggrieved about those insults that were made against him. And so this young man was being beaten because of insulting the IG. And that is why he died. Okay. And so for that reason, the IG is...
The deputy IG.
The deputy IG is an accessory to this crime by virtue of being the commander. So he should not be in office as these investigations are ongoing.
Yes, Grace, I'll come to you, Charles.
Yeah, and that was my point. And I wanted to say to the spokesman, the former spokesman, when you were in office, a lot of things were said about you. Would you use your power, even now they're still saying, right? Would you use your office to then insist on this person No, please let me finish.
Let her finish.
Just let me finish.
Just a minute. I agree, you will finish. You know.
No, allow her.
Yeah, let me finish. Yeah. So you don't abuse your power because you're holding this power, okay? As a DIG, you use your officers or whoever, the chain of command, a pecking order for this person to be arrested. Look at the facts. From Homa Bay, Ayub, to Nairobi, on what case? that false publication from Homa Bay to Nairobi. It is, I mean, he has to take responsibility. And remember what we are saying. This is just one of the steps as we move forward. We have to undertake thorough investigations, and I want to speak a little bit about IPOA. When the new board of IPOA came into place, we did have an induction process with them, and they had a very elaborate induction process. And part of the civil society had candid conversations with them. And one of the things we have impressed upon them is that they must redeem IPOA. And they have said they are committed to doing that, but they cannot do that without adequate resources, without the support and the independence. It's an independent oversight policing authority, but they do not have the independence. A lot of times there's also been interference. I know, Commissioner, you will agree with me. So this office needs to run as an independent investigative office. The other thing that we need to ensure that is working is the prosecutions. When cases go to the DPP, what happens? There's been a bit of a push and pull in that area. So we need to ensure that the mechanisms and the arm of justice is working so that we stop letting Kenyans down. But we cannot play around with the issue of us not requesting, but demanding that the DIG steps down. It's to allow a transparent process without interference, because the officers who are in office now, they'll tell you behind cameras that there's a lot of interference, that they're not even supposed to speak to people, that they are not supposed to give certain evidence. And if we were to elaborate on some of the contradictions that have been given, a lot of us have been to Central Police Station. When did you see a solitary cell, somebody held in solitary in the cells? Okay? With
water spilled on the floor. With
water spilled on the floor. I am privy to the information that the said wall, and I'm sorry, I hope I'm not interfering with the investigations, but the said wall is not a wall, it's a ceiling. You know, so some of these things need to be investigated in a system that allows for the truth to come out. Remember, Kenyans are hurting. And what we are doing is we are fueling anger by just not making the environment right for thorough, independent, prompt investigations. I want to give IPOA the opportunity, because I've spoken to them on a one-to-one, and they have promised and they have said, we are committed to ensuring that we deliver on our mandate, but they need support. So let us give them an opportunity to prove us wrong. This time. Okay. Yes.
Not only with Albert's life, but also all the other cases who are failed,
absolutely.
Allegedly by police bullet. Yes, Charles.
Yes, it's okay. First of all, I'm grateful to Mr. President because he said there are things you need to assume. I think there we meet closely. It's a point of equilibrium that at top leadership, there are things you need to assume. And President, that is how also people get experience. I am sure in Mr. Lagat's career going forward, if he has opportunity to remain in office, this would be one of the biggest lessons that sometimes you have to assume. The only thing is that I trust the DCI's capacity to investigate this matter. And it will be of great interest to get to know actually what really happened. I've told you, it's sad to me because, unfortunately, Mr. President, I remain a policeman for the rest of my life. No matter any position I would get, I would still remain a policeman. And I would want the police to have a very good image. I remember one of my sons telling me that he would want to join police. I had my reservations. I told him, what I've gone through is so painful. And I would not want my child to go through what I've gone through. Because sometimes you find yourself in a position and in a very awkward position. I remember when baby Pendo died, I was police spokesperson. Everybody in my community came and told me, you have killed baby Pendo. When I went to campaign, I was being told, you've killed baby Pendo. So it's a very tough experience. And that is why when I brought in the political aspect, I didn't bring in for any purpose. I just wanted us to be a bit broad in thinking and say, let's leave it to investigators to tell us. The only thing that you must insist, or we must insist, is we must get the truth on this matter, because all of us have children. And even if you don't have children, the children of this country belong to all of us.
Yes.
They are our children, and we must protect them.
Yeah.
The only thing going forward also, Mr. President, is that we need also to rethink about our own personal discipline, how we want to transact business. Let us also not leave it very open for people just to do what they want, attack people, abuse others. That but it should not go to an extent of killing someone. I always believe that even if a murderer,
but you know,
if somebody who has killed someone in broad daylight, we can't kill him. We have to take him to court.
Yes. And we have adequate laws to take care of all those.
Yeah, internationally, we have reached a level where even when you are convicted for murder, we are not even ready to hang them. We want death penalty abolished across board. So there is no level of crime or activity that would amount to somebody killing another. It's not acceptable. And I agree with all of you. That is totally not acceptable. The only thing is I would want us not to be overzealous and over-target, but it is important that we look at this. And our image, the image of the police is very important.
Yes.
I have something to say about IPOA. Many Kenyans maybe don't know. In 2004, we had a police strategic plan, which was running 2004-2008. And we had recommendations. One of our recommendations was to have a civilian oversight authority. Because we realized sometimes, even as a policeman, you are offended, or sometimes you are justified in your action. But when you allow yourselves to investigate, people don't tend to agree with you. So we wanted a civilian oversight authority. We also wanted to have one police service. We didn't want something called AP. We wanted to have a national police service. We can have units, but we wanted to have one police service. At the same time, we wanted to have a police service commission. We wanted to be pulled out of the public service commission. Why? Because our job is a bit unique, a bit different. So we wanted a police service commission that would look into our systems. So what happened? Between 2004 and 2008, we could not get it. The post-election violence became a blessing in disguise to us as the police service. Why? Because when it came up, and then the Kwaki report, the Kriegler report, I remember Kingori Mwangi, I, and Kiraide, we pushed a lot of information, and we carried even our strategic plan. The only way we did not agree, we did not succeed, was now when the provincial administration organized themselves and said they must have AP. We wanted to absorb all our colleagues so that everybody is trained. You see the way military trains. The military trains Army, Navy, and Air Force together at Eldoret, and then you now go to your different units to specialize. So we wanted that to happen. And why did we also want a police oversight authority? Our welfare. Policemen are in a position you cannot demonstrate to get your rights. You cannot, it's not possible, because if policemen go on strike just for 1 minute, a Kora Wote will be in town and they'll steal from people. So policemen cannot demonstrate. Policemen cannot agitate for their welfare to be improved. So IPOA was also to help us to agitate for police welfare, ensure that, and Macharia Njeru did it on housing when he became the chairman.
First chairperson.
He recommended that this idea of one policeman is, imagine you are sleeping in the sitting room. The houses are 2 bedrooms. You are sleeping in the sitting room. Another person is sleeping in the bedroom and the other bedroom. You have a young wife, you have left her in the sitting room. You have 2 men living in that house and you have gone for report office. Are you really working, or you are thinking about security of your wife? Are you getting me? So you find that Macharia really worked on that. So we really, the policemen really embrace IPOA, not just to oversight what they do, but also to fight for their welfare. And what I want to tell Kenyans, just a minute, Ayub.
Yes,
what I want to tell Kenyans
up,
today, that let us not wait for people to die in police custody. Let us, all of us as Kenyans, think about police. Think about, this is the only source of our security. Let us think about how do we give police a good budget? How do we train police? Like now we have not trained police for, 4 years. Then tomorrow, we are going to train 10,000 policemen. Do our institutions have capacity to train 10,000 at a go? When we were being trained, we were only being trained 400 people to get proper training. So if we have money for police to train, they can be training 2,000 this year, 2,000 next year, just to replenish those who have maybe gone through natural attrition, or those who have retired, just because the number is already good. We already have 100, almost 105, 110, 120 police officers. But we really need to rethink about police. Because police welfare is so low. Let police not be the last option. It should be a profession that everybody is proud. Today, everybody is, if, for example, you are a military officer and you are a captain, you are a general, you look at, like us, when policemen retire, they get lost. You don't even see them. But generals of army, you keep on seeing them lingering around us. So, Ayub, let us think about the police. When we live here, let Kenyans really, let us police not just be a place where we bash. We know, even a son of a bishop, and let me tell you, you can be a bishop and you get a child who is a criminal. And that does not make you stop preaching in church.
Thank you.
So even police officers, we will have police officers who are rogue, we admit, because even matter of vetting people cannot be perfect, but let us look at the welfare of the police.
And that then takes us to the goodwill part of how policy players should work on this. And Commissioner, coming to you on this, because looking back at the Police Reform Commission in the aftermath of the post-election violence, a few months earlier, before the appointment of the Ransley and his team on May 7th, 2009, then Minister for Internal Security, Professor George Saitoti, placed a mischievous announcement in the Kenya Gazette, notice number 8144 of September 2008, to populate presidential appointees domiciled in his ministry and who can be dismissed at will. These were the first attempts to freeze the creation of an oversight body, IPO, that you had mentioned. Later on, Professor Saitoti was captured in the WikiLeaks report, the mass data leaks from America, where he told the then American Assistant Secretary of State, Johnny Carson, of what's needed in the police. He said, we need evolution, not revolution. Later on, he denied, saying normal reforms are required, like looking to the welfare of officers. Commissioner, this points to long-standing lacking goodwill that still today stands if you look at the general welfare of police, including the medical insurance. Today, police officers are not as comfortable as they were under the previous scheme. They think about their welfare. Housing is another problem. The mental state of these police officials. Yet the policy players, starting with the executive, are not bothered. To them, this is not a priority.
I want to agree with Owino there on the issue of police welfare, which is that at the mandate of the National Police Service Commission. And it is true what you say. What the officers go through, you can't believe it, from their salaries, and it starts with their recruitment. We have seen officers recruited using, there's a lot of, first of all, there's a lot of corruption in the recruitment process. Nepotism is very live in the National Police Service, and even the induction of the officers when they take office. So the policies that require that we get qualified officers to serve in the service is the starting point. The training of the officers should also be reviewed, the manner of their training curriculum. There should be more on human rights culture within the service, and so that now the officers knows the rights of the people, even as they go through the training. But I'll tell you that the officers really suffer, especially the junior officers, because you will find some of them working in hardship areas for years. The policy is 3 years and then you are transferred. But it's usual to find an officer serving in a hardship area for 6-7 years, and find others working in Nairobi for those 6-7 years without any transfers. So that also kills the morale of those officers. But I want to hasten to add that there are many, many recommendations from various players on police reforms, with the latest one being the presidential task force that was headed by Chief Justice Emeritus Honorable Maraga. And those recommendations are there. IPOA has done their recommendations. That task force was not the first. There have been many more task forces. Those reports are in Parliament with the Committee on National Security, and others are with the executive. So I think the starting point, we do not need another task force on police reforms, but we need a serious team in the National Police Service Commission now to implement those recommendations. We also need a huge budget. The budget that goes to the National Police Service, most of it should go to those reforms. Because as long as we do not reform the service and give incentives to the officers, then we do not expect to change the manner in which, or the modus operandi of the officers. Because we have seen, for instance, now you talk about their mental capacity and their counselors within the National Police Service. First of all, they are very few. Secondly, I do not even believe they are debriefed when they come from probably accident scenes or when they come from hardship areas, probably fighting budgets. So we need to look into the officers' welfare first. We also know that they hardly receive their allowances from their seniors. You saw the other day they are talking about they have not even received their allowances after supervising the national examinations. And that's not even that. I am sure there are officers who have never received their commissions after supervising the last general elections. But not that the money wasn't given. The money was given. But then the money hardly got to the officers. You find some officers with torn uniforms in far-flung areas. They live in small cubicles. They do not have, and you of course know about the insurance. You cannot have a claim on insurance when you are living at the border because the hospitals that they are to attend are concentrated within urban areas. So we may be responsible for what we see in the police service today, because we have neglected the members of the National Police Service, and then we have turned around to say that they have gone long. Those who have gone long, and it's a fair discussion we are having here. Yes. Mm-hmm. There is one, political interference. There is two, illegal command to the junior officers, and there is three, even members of the public trying to use police officers as debt collectors. We know for a fact that there are members of the citizenry who give instructions to officers at a pay to go and probably disable other people's businesses or collect debts. And that's why you find people arrested for crimes that are not exactly crimes of civil nature, debt collection. And then they are thrown in police custody. So until and unless those recommendations, those task forces, those recommendations are properly implemented, pay our officers well, give them proper insurance, make sure that on their demise, their families are taken care of, look at recruitment processes, promotions should be fair, because most of them are hardly promoted. Transfers are done sometimes to punish them. Those are the things that have made our police officers who they are today. And unless we clearly look at their welfare, then we are not going to change the National Police Service.
Grace, is that direction where we need to head with this discussion and also the mindset shift from the public?
Yes, indeed. I want to speak to the issue around behavior, attitudes, and skills. One of the things, and I do agree completely with the Commissioner here, one of the things that we saw after the Maraga Task Force report was shared and made public is that the prioritization of what needs to be done first is wrong, because we start with the heavy investment, the heavy capital items, for example, digitization, a lot of equipment. Not that it's bad, but in terms of prioritization, we probably should focus on the soft issues: promotions, transfers, recruitment, mental health, issues around training. And by the way, just speaking about training, if, for example, our officers were well equipped in use of non-coercive skills when it comes to interrogations, use of non-violence tools when you're interrogating, alleged suspects and all that, we would be having a different report around human rights. But we've put human rights at the back. It's not an issue. It's not even discussed. It's not a priority. And we focus on the infrastructure. We focus on the heavyweights. So that is a big, big, big issue. And just to, of course, appreciate the officers who are doing their work as should be, and say that the rogue officers who are few, but actually hurting the image of the police service, must be dealt with. And allow me to emphasize on the issue of individual responsibility and command responsibility again. So in terms of human rights, let's focus, and we have said it. the police service, why it changed from a force to a service, is because of the human nature of interaction. We have the provision, for example, of the community policing committees, where you begin to build trust and confidence and have relationships with the police at that community level. But is it happening? Very few stations have adopted the community policing committees and the structure around community policing. So the issue of public mistrust of police, the issue of the police service not being a service but being a force. Yesterday, at the roundabout when the protests began and the young people who had come to the mortuary, were chanting and demanding for their rights, we had a police, officer who came and said, we will support you in terms of controlling vehicles, and they allowed people to have their say. There was no violence at that point. No tear gas, no nothing. So if they were trained to deliver on their mandate, public order management, you don't use force and tear gas and running always to violence, but instead use dialogue and negotiation. So there are skills that the police service must be trained on and given. Just very quickly, hoping that we will touch on one other big area.
Yes, please.
The National Corona Services Act. It's really important that we discuss the operationalization of the National Corona Services Act. Yesterday, and I do want to appreciate the good relationship that obviously, is there with the Chief Pathologist Office, but we could not carry out the autopsy because the pathologists are not enough. So Dr. Ojwang, obviously the chief pathologist, could not perform the autopsy himself because he is related to the victim. And we don't want the case to collapse when it goes to court because there'll be issues of bias and blah, blah, blah. So fair enough. The second doctor we were hoping we would come and do the autopsy was busy undertaking other autopsies that had been planned for before. One other was indisposed. And so the autopsy could not be done. Now, I mean, it's ridiculous that that office is not well-resourced. The National Corona Services Act has put in place structures, systems, and processes for managing, how we deal with the death of persons. We are working with that office to develop guidelines on management of the human remains and all that. But really, we must prioritize where we put public finances. Look at how much is going into corruption, but we cannot fund IPOA, we cannot operationalize the National Corona Services Act, we cannot operationalize those services that deliver justice. We need to discuss that.
And Bonarais, how much of a diversion has the current administration taken from its course in establishing institutions, populating them with the right personnel, because it's on the same premise that President William Ruto campaigned and even decried how he himself was victimized in the build-up to the campaigns, dismissing the former DCI Director George Kinoti. But still, high-handedness from police continues and the violence meted on Kenyans.
I remember a conversation we once had with the late Kingori Mwangi, and he told me, tongue-in-cheek, that he does not think that there is ever going to be a regime that will be keen on police reforms because the political establishment uses the police force for purposes of advancing their own political interests. Now, if you look at these issues which have been raised, the pay, the housing, and all these issues, the fact that when the President came into office, he pledged that he will no longer, use the police for political purposes. Yes, yet he has over-intensified the use of police for political purposes. So it just tells you that it's pure rhetoric. You set up a task force, yet there are so many recommendations that are already been made. So it's a question of talk that does not match the actions. And I want to say this, that over the years, I've dealt with many police officers in my line of work. And there's been a huge shift in the manner in which police work with the public. A huge shift, so that when I sit here, I know that a huge majority of the leadership in the police, they actually do a good job. You go to police stations, the police stations are no longer torture stations the way they previously used to be. They have very good relationships. You go in, the OCS is there, he will listen to you, you have a complaint, they will deal with it and whatever. The only time you draw a line is when there is political interference. And at that point, if this is an officer you've been dealing with before, he will call you on the side and tell you, if you want to deal with this issue, go and talk to the IG, or go and talk to the PS, or go and talk to, because I have instructions, and unless those instructions are countermanded at the top, there is nothing I can do. And for me, that is the greatest problem that we are having. And it is manifesting itself. And so all these challenges, and as a country, we must accept that we have challenges. We may not have all the resources that are necessary to do the things that need to be done. So even as these resources are gradually allocated to the things that need to be done, the political establishment must, as of necessity, because if that is not done, even if we have, as we are saying, even if the DIG takes responsibility and all these people take responsibility, for as long as the political class is using the police to advance their political interests, impunity in police service is not going to end.
Thank you.
And so that is the point where we need to have responsibility.
Okay.
The executive must allow the police to actually, because when the police are acting on their own without interference, they are extremely professional.
Thank you. Let's now sample the feedback here on the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikader. We are pulling that up for you of the contributions you have made in the course of this very weighty discussion here on Citizen Television following the death of Albert Ojwang, who had died in police custody. So here we go. Engineer Lazaro says the current incident should spark a wide call for police reforms. IPOA, please wake up and make use of the powers granted to you, to your office by the Constitution. No police station should be manned by 3/4 of officers from the same tribe. Adimilo wa Magumu says the very police who expect to protect us and ensure our safety are often the first to oppress and destroy us. They need counseling because their actions are increasingly driven by fear and intimidation rather than a sense of duty. Babu Michael says the death of Albert Ojwang in police custody hasn't just ruined the faith of Kenyans. Having faith Kenyans have in their government has also made them lose even more trust in the hands of Kenyan security officers. They continue to erode public faith and trust. Very sad. Jacon Nim says what DIG Lagat should tell the nation is, first, why did he want Albert arrested? Second, why wasn't Albert booked at Homa Bay? And third, why was he taken to Nairobi Central Police Station? Ogol Nyakwad says, with all due respect, could the former police spokesperson, Mr. Owino, kindly shed light on what happens to a junior police officer who refuses to carry out unlawful orders from their superiors? Some of the directives being issued lately are not just questionable, they are outright ridiculous. Frank Orinde says the police aren't just going rogue, they are feeling a vacuum left by a leadership that thrives on chaos. When command is unclear and accountability is absent, boots on the ground answer to force, not the law. The real question is, who is silently allowing it to happen? Lakishon Laban says Ojwang did not just die, he was failed by a system afraid of scrutiny, escorted across counties, silenced in custody. No amount of police spin will hide the truth. The complainant who triggered this arrest is the very boss of those who arrested him. Briefly, 30 seconds each. Starting with
first of all, I must say that Ojwang's death is very sad. And at this particular time when we are facing a lot of challenges, especially political tensions. And remember, in just 1 year, we'll be going for elections. And just like he has put it, we must put police out of politics 100% to ensure that there is fairness in what we are doing. So I want to say that the investigators, because again, we are not going to get investigators from outside, the DCI must support us and move very fast so that we get to know the truth about Ojwang's death. And I want to assure you that this kind of death will not matter the level of the officer involved. And I can be very sure from where I sit that there's a lot of tension, a lot of cries, and the only thing that would save us is getting who did this.
Thank you.
And not rumors.
Yes.
And lastly, I want to urge all Kenyans, please advocate, fight, and work for police welfare.
Thank you.
It is your police, and you will not get another one.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I also want to urge the public not to resent or to hate the police officers. The police officers are your friends, and those who are wrong must be dealt with by independent policing oversight authority. We want to see Albert's death investigated by IPOA and not the DCI, because as you know, the police cannot investigate themselves, and even if the DCI has mandate to investigate all murders, this one should be left exclusively to IPOA. Secondly, I want to tell the public, I mean, there's an adage in law that says law aids the vigilant, not the indolent. In this, I want to encourage the members of the public who has gone through police brutality to go for the remedy, to go for compensation in civil courts. Because as long as the IG does not pay huge amounts of money in compensation, then it will still remain neglected. So that we need to have compensation to victims of police brutality in a manner that will compel the IG to see that they are spending too much money on compensation to laying in on their rogue officers.
Yes, Grace.
One, I want to call upon justice for Albert and the many other Kenyans who've fallen in the hands of rogue police. Thank you, Kenyans, for being vigilant and for speaking out. We must continue to defend our constitution and utilize all the rights that are provided for us. Number two, I've been in a meeting with the IG, where the IG committed to transform the police service into a people-centered police service. I want to call upon the IG to deliver on that commitment because it is important. And finally, I want to say, as Kenyans, let's continue being united in the quest for justice and for human rights and never give up, because someday we will create the change that is needed in this country.
Yes, Bonares.
I mean, I think at this point, first is to just express our condolences to the family of the deceased and to all those who have, undergone police brutality, and then to really make a plea to the political establishment to stop using the police for political purposes. Allow the police to undertake their work in a professional manner, in an objective manner, and in an independent manner. Because power is transient. It comes and goes. If you use this police to brutalize your perceived opponents, tomorrow when you're out of power, the same thing will be done unto you, and we would still be here saying that what is being done to you is wrong.
Thank you.
So we just want to, I mean, we have to allow the police to do their work and to do their work independently. And also to the police service and to the leadership of the police service. You have to realize and you have to accept that you cannot enforce law and order without the confidence and the trust of the public.
Okay.
When your stations become crime scenes, when you become murderers, and when you kill, especially in instances where you're misusing your powers, you create a very dangerous situation, not just for the country, but also for yourselves. Okay. And so we just want to urge the police, the independent oversight authority, not on this one, not to let the ball fall.
Thank you. Much appreciated, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. Grace Wangeshi is the Executive Director at the Independent Medical and Legal Unit. Thanks for your time. Charles Owino, formerly the spokesperson for the National Police Service and from the National Communications Center at the moment. And Commissioner John Waiganjo served at the previous IPOA Commission. Thanks for your time. And President Eric Deuri Emeritus, the Law Society of Kenya, was also with us in studio. Thanks for your time here and company on the broadcast. Always and as ever cherished. Up next is Social Hour. We'll see you tomorrow morning here at the same time. Till then, good morning.